President Joe Biden announced again yesterday that he's taking his time to go visit the good citizens of East Palestine, Ohio. I mean, they're not nearly as important as the people who live in Ukraine right now. I mean, those are taxpayers over there in Ukraine. No, wait a minute. They don't pay taxes at all. They just take our money. Well, regardless of that, Joe Biden ain't going to Ohio anytime soon. Pete Buttigieg went, though. That should be enough. Did you see how he behaved himself there, though? Did you see sort of the arrogant, aloof, disconnected way he walked through the streets as if he's got more important things to do? Well, one person saw it. Actually, one person caught it on video with some viral exchanges with Pete Buttigieg and his press team, and that was Savanah Hernandez. She's a reporter with TPUSA, and she writes over at Post Millennial. She's a YouTuber. She's a podcaster. You're everywhere, Savanah. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Although these days, yeah, are you still on YouTube? You know, you come and go real fast these days, the way they have their rules.
Barely. I almost lost my channel, but we're still hanging on by a thread.
Well, we've got other avenues just in case. Savanah, you got pushed aside when you dared to ask Secretary Buttigieg if he would apologize to the people of East Palestine. I want to talk about what the press people did in a moment, but first, that moment, the fact that he just refused to even acknowledge that is how dare you even ask it? This level of arrogance really is amazing, and he somehow gets away with it.
Absolutely. And, I was there for an entire 2 days prior on the ground, actually speaking to residents and trying to understand their plight, understand what they've been through. And it was funny because former President Trump was there just the day prior. And the difference in reception to these two individuals could not have been more different. And again, too, this isn't even a political issue, right? The reason why the residents on Wednesday were so excited to see Donald Trump was because they genuinely just wanted a leader to see them, to care about them, to say, hey, as Americans, you are not forgotten. So Pete Buttigieg ignoring me wasn't about him trying to run away from the press. It was about him completely ignoring the Americans that he has abandoned and ignored and had a slow response to. Remember that it took him 10 days to even respond to this toxic train derailment. So, yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
surprised by the response, but disappointing to say the
You
least.
know, it's interesting because I mean, the images coming out of East Palestine, Ohio, when you see dead fish in the river, when you see livestock dying in people's front yards, people reporting of the smell that's still lingering in the air from that chemical burnoff. And you got the federal government in Washington, D.C. say everything's safe, nothing to worry about, breathe the air, drink the water. One way to demonstrate that is to show up, be on the ground, breathe the air, and drink the water.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I wanted to be on the ground because the government loves to do this little thing called lying to the American public. So I love going down to the scene. And on my first day, I went to one of their local creeks where there were houses. At homes all around, beautiful little neighborhood. And I immediately got a headache because of how toxic the smell is. And then I'm watching a lot of these officials wade through the water, and you're still seeing that chemical sheen. Keep in mind, I was there last week. So this train derailment happened 3 weeks ago. The EPA is still telling people that the air and water is safe. If you go to East Palestine High School, you'll actually see that the water fountains have this big red lock over every single fountain that says danger, do not use. And we're still being told that the air and water is safe.
And you're there with Turning Point USA, of course, which is a right of center group. There were a couple of other conservative reporters there as well. Getting video. Did you see any mainstream media outlets? I didn't see anybody from CBS or CNN walking with you as you were saying to the secretary that the people of East Palestine would love to have an apology. Were they there, or were they just behaving themselves and being nice?
Oh, they were there, but they were there at the approved press conference waiting for Pete Buttigieg to get there with their approved questions. And also, too, I would like to note that CNN was on the scene for the first time specifically for Pete Buttigieg. My friend Nick Sorter was on the ground since day one. He was probably one of the first reporters that was actually breaking this story on scene. And he told me, I haven't seen CNN this entire time, but the first thing I saw when Pete Buttigieg made his arrival was his live stream on CNN with his little orange construction vest, his photo op. He flew in, he flew out. He didn't really care about the residents because if he did, he would have walked the streets just like President Donald Trump did and actually spoken to the residents who have been affected.
When you talk to the resident, let's just be clear where East Palestine. This is eastern Ohio, near the border of Pennsylvania, western Pennsylvania. These are the voters who were so properly covered by Selena Zito during the 2016 election. These are the forgotten voters of America in the Rust Belt. Their cities are of another era, back in the 40s and 50s, blue collar workers. They're seeing their kids leave town and never come back. They stay at the diners. They complain that rightly so, that they've been forgotten by Washington D.C. Did they have a sense? Did they even say to you, listen, if this were New York City, if this were LA, if this were Chicago, the Biden administration and the Democrats would be all over it. But because we voted for Trump, because we're conservative, they don't care.
Well, I don't think it was really political for them. I think it was more of a, hey, we're Americans. Why have we been forgotten? And the message that I heard more than, hey, this is the way we voted. Is this why we're being ignored? Was, why is it that Joe Biden is in Ukraine? Why is it
Yeah.
that our taxpayer dollars are going to Ukraine? Because keep in mind, the week that Donald Trump was there was the same week that Joe Biden was able to make an entire overseas trip to a foreign country that he is not the president of, mind you. And also, I'd like to add that, the Thursday morning that I woke up when I was awaiting Pete Buttigieg's arrival, one of the first things I saw was Janet Yellen pledging another $10 billion to Ukraine. So again, I'm an American citizen who doesn't even live in East Palestine, and I am just seeing I'm feeling really the complete abandonment for these people. So imagine being a resident on the ground. You lived your whole life there. You have your kids there. By the way, a lot of the kids still breaking out in hives, rashes, inability to breathe. And you're watching the president of the United States go to a foreign country and send your taxpayer dollars abroad while simultaneously ignoring the fact that your entire home has been poisoned.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great point, and I think it told you everything you need to know about whether this is an America first or America's second kind of White House. One other question. Let's get back to how the media treatment was here. You're there covering this story legitimately. And by the way, you don't even have to be a reporter. You could be a citizen, and you should be still treated with respect and honor. The press secretary, the comms director for Pete Buttigieg, you caught her on video pulling you aside saying, I'll answer. Oh, let's take a quick look at it. Great. Let's see.
To the government's slow response, do you have any apology?
I'm his press person. I can help you.
Sure,
I'm his
sure.
press person.
So can we ask why it took him almost 3 weeks to get here?
I'm sorry, I don't want to do this on camera.
What was his
That's
personal?
enough. I mean, I've worked in D.C. in the media for over 10 years now. I have never seen a press person, as she identified herself, for a cabinet level secretary who refused to answer a question on camera. The look on her face, treating you with such disdain there. Did she ever explain why she didn't want to be recorded answering your questions?
No, absolutely not. And the greatest thing about this interaction is that it does very beautifully exemplify the DC mindset. I had a security guard that tried to come in and say, "Oh, this press secretary asked not to be on camera multiple times, and this girl keeps filming her." And they try to get the local police involved to shut me down. And for the first time in my history as a reporter on American soil, I actually had a police officer defend my right to film and say, actually, she's in a public space. The press secretary can walk away. So, of course, this press secretary handling this as badly as possible, saying, yeah, I don't want to be on camera. And why is that? Because they don't want to be held responsible. They don't want to be held accountable. If they were willing to truly take responsibility for their horrific response to this, Pete Buttigieg would immediately have stopped and said, I do sincerely apologize to the people. We should have been here on the ground. But what did he
Yeah.
do? He ran away. And then his press secretary tried to say that press secretaries don't take questions on camera. What are you
Right.
doing, you psychopath? Like,
Right. And they tried to have the police shut you down so that the police in East Palestine, Ohio actually understand the First Amendment and the Constitution better than the people who work comms and media for a cabinet level secretary. And by the way, ironically, Savannah, this woman's face is now everywhere. She didn't want to be on camera. And boy, we all know who she is now.
yeah, exactly. And again, too, it's just like the incompetence of this administration. All she had to do was say, hey, Pete has a press conference in 2 hours. You can ask your questions there. But
Right.
she truly went the worst way possible by saying, I don't want to be on camera. And I even mentioned Donald Trump. This is about a 2 minute clip. And you can see the disdain in her face
Oh,
when
yeah.
I mention his name. And it's so funny just to watch the body language of these people who truly do think that they are above answering to the American people. And that is who I was there for. I was
Yep.
there for the residents of East Palestine who have been completely ignored and abandoned and who said, hey, we want our federal officials held accountable.
It was great stuff. Great reporting. Thanks for doing it. Thanks for joining us. That's Savanah Hernandez. Keep an eye on her. More to come on O'Connor tonight.